Hey guys, it's Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Thank you for once again coming back to my channel. Now, if you are new here, welcome. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. If you are old here and you have not subscribed, what are you waiting on? But thank you for continuously returning. Do me a favor, also turn on your post notifications, like this video, share it, as well as comment down below. Now, as usual, or for those of you who do not know, I like to talk about things in the world, but things specifically that plagues us in the Black community. And I'm going to talk open, I'm going to talk honestly with a certain level of tact and decorum at the same time. And I love to bring an educational aspect as well as an Hebraic aspect to things. I like to bring in statistics and things of that nature so that we can grow and learn as a people. And I love to delve into both sides of the spectrum, male, female, young, old, X, Y, and Z, so that we can kind of bridge the gap, even when it comes to religious and spiritual standpoints and different mindsets, so that all of us can get a better way of being open and honest, but to form some type of holistic thinking. With that being said, today's video and every video is sponsored by my small business, Harvest Essence. Now, today's product we have on sale, actually, my oils are on sale. We'll see, because some of you guys have asked me to extend my sale. So thank you so much to some of my customers, my repeat customers, my new customers. I really appreciate it. Those of you whom have reached out to me, I have this one in particular is my Yoni Oil. This contains coconut oil, calendula, roses, nettle, raspberry leaf, fenugreek, and some more herbs and flowers. Now, I definitely suggest to do a skin testing on all oils. I have had females use this when they have had a little irritation, when they've been battling BV and some yeast symptoms, excuse me. Some women have placed it on a tampon and inserted. Some women have used this directly on their clitoris, on their labias, and I have had absolutely no complaints. And I've had raving reviews actually for increase in moisture and tightness, and as well as a balancing and a more natural fragrance exuding out of them from using this yoni oil. I also have on sale, so my oils right now are $20 to $25. I have my beard oils on sale. The men love the rose beard oil. It has a nice soft fragrance, but it increases moisture and the hair. It operates as an astringent. My Calendula beard oil actually also is another top seller of mine. It is amazing for guys with coarser hair whom happen to have ingrown hairs and things of that nature. The calendula oil can also be used for eczema, psoriasis. There have been times when my histamines have been flared up, or my sons and I rub down in it, and it helps the itching immediately. I also have hibiscus and lavender beard oil. I have the same for body oils. The hibiscus body oil is actually my top selling body oil. The body oil is all natural. I do not use lotion. Everyone that comes into contact with me always compliments me on how soft my skin is when they go to touch my hand. And so I take that as a compliment. So any of my oils, I also have massage oils and anti-yeast oils. So go ahead and reach out to me on Instagram or on TikTok at TIERRA_holiday, or you could email me at Tierra Holiday, and holiday is with 2 L's at yahoo.com. Now let's get into this video. So on today, guys, I want to talk to you guys about some Black women not desiring marriage. And this is something that's taboo in the Black community, that's not talked about openly. And contrary to popular belief, a lot of women practice emotional detachment. But before we go there, I want to set out the premise. And I want to say that there are some things that play factors, and we're going to hit on some of those things. If I miss any of them, go ahead and comment down below or hit me in my DMs on one of my social media platforms so that we can talk about this. And if you are a woman who don't desire marriage, you've never desired marriage, you've been married and don't want it, you've been engaged, you've been heartbroken, or you just feel as if that you are here to plant your seeds and give out your love freely and no man can own you, reach out to me, sis. I want to talk to you to see your mindset and see what got you here. With that being said, in the Black community, marriage was something that was highly revered and highly looked up on. Two-parent households was the antithesis of the Black community. We were also getting married at a higher rate than any other race, nationality, and ethnicity, which is why you will see that even though marriage has begun to plunder in the Black community, I believe over 80% of Black men still marry Black women. And I know for a fact that Black men are in their children's lives at a higher rate than any other nationality, race, or ethnicity. However, as I just first stated, marriage has crumbled down in the Black community. And while there are many, many factors, on today, I want to specifically own in on the female factor and the aspects as to why this has happened. And again, if I miss something, feel free to speak up and let me know. So we know that in the 1960s the Black Power movement was up and it was going. Majority of our parents were just born during that movement or they were around 10 years old. I'm in my 30s. So my father was born in 63 and my mom was born in 65. My late mother was born in 65. And so they have some memories of some of those things, but they have memories of the two-parent household structure. And thankfully, I did grow up in a two-parent household of 36 years of marriage. I am a love baby. I am a marriage baby. And my parents were married for 36 years before my mom passed away in November. And so my dad came from a two-parent household and my mother came from a two-parent household. And although those households were not the same type of households, even though had great similarities, this was something that was not foreign in the Black community. And I mean by being married, they came from marriages. They were not in households where their mothers were shacking up with their boyfriends or anything. Both of my grandmothers were married women until their husbands passed away. Um, and so this was something that was normal in the 60s and in the 70s and beforehand. You see, we had our Black messiahs, so to speak, the ones who were intellectual and would speak up for our rights on both sides of the spectrum, whether you had the passivity with some sorts of self defense verbally, or you had the one who was more I'm going to get down or I'm going to lay down. You're going to feel me physically and on every level. We always had two sides of the same coin, and that's something I'll be talking about very soon. But we saw the Black Panther movement, and we just saw so many different things. Even the gang culture was totally different back then because you had the gang leaders interacting with the politicians, and they were able to get clothes for the neighborhoods, and they were able to get food, and they were able to get after school programs. And you saw the gang leaders interacting with the pastors. They were not allowed to walk past churches cursing, and women wouldn't come into the church dressed any type of way, and there was no drinking outside of the church. You know, some Baptist churches had their smoke rooms and different things like that. I have a Pentecostal background, but I had fellowship with for a Gospel Baptist, and of course you still had your sin, but there was much more of a family structure. Now, there are a multiplicity of reasons why. Some go by the opinion, which is backed up by history, that once the second women's rights movement, or the second feminist wave stood into play, then the white woman was able to penetrate the psyche of the black woman, whose psyche was already being played up on and tormented because of slavery. And I know a lot of people say, well, slavery is over with, and that was so many years ago. That was not that long ago. And what we failed to realize, that even if we have not experienced something directly, our DNA remembers, our pathology remembers. In the book of Genesis, when there is an interaction between Abram, and there is an interaction between him and Melchizedek, and then you go over into the book of Hebrews, and it begins to talk about that the sons were already there because they were a seed in their father's Abraham loins. That says that you already existed, not only in the mind of the Most High, but in this earth realm on the inside of your ancestor before you ever got here, which is how Exodus the 20th chapter becomes true, when the Most High tells us that he will visit the iniquities upon you of your forefathers, of those who hate him, for the third and a fourth generation. So even if you were not there, the spirit realm remembers, these other people ancestors remembers, and yours do as well. And so does your DNA, as well as your environmental structure and your makeup. So ever since slavery, there was a broken dynamic between the black man and the black woman. And this predates the transatlantic slave trade. This predates the Arabic slave trade, because before we ever went into captivity, black women never had to vie for power. Black women never had to ask to be seen. If we go back to the genesis of the original Afro-Asiatic black man and black woman, according to DNA analysis that was taken from an African American, so to speak, man from South Carolina in 2013. He contained what is called the Adam gene, which led back to the Congo Basin. And when you look into the oral traditions of the West Igbos, who have been found to be based upon their cultural dynamics, their DNA, their linguistics, as well as their Hebraic standpoints, and their oral tradition, that they are Israelites of the Bible, that Adam and Eve were indeed of Negro descent. There are many, many, many black races on the face of the earth. If you look at the book of Genesis in the 10th chapter with the table of nations, the entire world were of darker complexion at one point. With that being said, when we begin to look into the beginning, the woman actually came out of the side of Adam. And so when we look into woman's intuition, and this is no breakdown of my own, although I was able to conceptualize this before I heard it placed in this verbiage, Moray, Divine Prospect, put it so eloquently when he said that the woman's intuition is real because the woman came from the inward parts of Adam, and we say from the rib, but the inward part that was on the inside of Adam was the ruach, was the breath of life. And in the book of Proverbs, we see wisdom being personified as the spirit that was there in the beginning. And we know that the breath of life is the very spirit. So that's the feminine, or the chokma aspect of man that was placed on the inside of him, which gives us the balance of masculine and feminine. And so that intuition was pulled out of man in order to fraction woman, in order to form her. And Adam and Eve, they were companions, but because the frequency and the ear of the black woman is so easily enticed, she began to listen to another frequency that she knew not intimately, who did not give her instruction, who did not give her order. She came out of the side of her husband, and there was no vying for attention. And this is why in the book of Genesis, one of the reasons why in the book of Genesis, the Yahweh Elohim began to say that your desire will be to your husband, because it's a natural inclination of the black woman to want to do what she wants to do. It's the natural inclination of the black woman to say, well, that sounds good, and even if we know that it has a truth, but it does not contain all of the truth, if it does what it is that we want it to do, then that's what it is that we're going to follow. This is just proven. And so when we begin to see before captivity, and even after some captivity, you had queen mothers. You had Miriam being called a prophetess before Moses was ever called a prophetess. She was a Levite as well because of who her brothers were and who her parents were. They were born and raised in the same house. She did not have to vie for attention. She was who she was, and she was solidified. She was one of the women who went out with her tambourines. There are songs of Miriam, and anyone who know about the pre-Hasidic practices and the rituals of the Israelites, it took a certain frequency of the drums, the same thing that we see over in the African ceremonies, and the same things that we see in Sunday morning services and things in the Caribbean. It takes the beating of the drums. Why do you think the frequency of this music can get us going so much, and the bass of the body begins to join on the bass of the drum? So Miriam was a prophetess, and she would go out with her tamarines, and these women would sing, and they would sing in ancient Hebrew, and they would be invoking and setting the frequency and the atmosphere so that the prophets could prophesy. And she was called amongst the prophets. You had Deborah, who held the highest position in ancient Israel before there was ever a king and before there was ever a queen, because we were not supposed to have kings and queens like the other nations. We had our deity resting among us. Yod He Wav He. He rested among us, but because we always wanted to be corrupt and look like that which was around us, he then gave us a king. So before the kingship, we had our priests and we had our judges, which is why there's the priestly text and the judges text and the Yahweh text and the Jehovah text. You have the different aspects that the Torah and the Tanakh are broken down into based off the time frame that the book was written in and the aspect of which it was written from. So in that time, Deborah was a priest, she was a prophet, and she was a judge, and she also was one that was looked at in order to go to war. She had men answering to her, but guess what? She was a married woman. She still had a husband. And this isn't me saying that women have to get married. This is me laying the premise to say that we never had to vie for attention. The feminist movement was never our issue. We actually were not in a PATRIACHY unless we were in captivity. And this was so that we could be protected, because a lot of other nations did not give their women voices. If you look into the New Testament, I believe it's the book of Acts, but I may be wrong. There was some type of conundrum between, I think it was the Grecian women and some of the Israelite women. They had two different orders of the day. A lot of these practices are Roman Catholic and Grecian in standpoint. Our men never had to tell us to sit and be quiet. When that scripture is used, the Apostle Paul was not writing to mostly Israelites. He was addressing congregations to the Gentiles. He even called himself the apostles of the Gentiles. So when we look at the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter, and those first few verses, and it talks about Japheth and him populating the isles of the Gentiles, and that word means nations, and it can also mean heathen because they are non-believers, or strangers because they are not of the seed of Abraham, but they can become joint heirs with the original heirs. They can become branches that once fell off, but those branches cannot be replaced. The tree cannot be replaced by branches. So when we pick up on this ideology that the Black woman is so suppressed, these are literally Eurocentric standpoints because they had PATRIACHY, where women could really say nothing. Now, at times they would have some queen mothers, but those women would be assassinated a lot of times. And sometimes they had queens and rule. But we have to learn the etymology of these things. So when we get into the feminist movement and we allowed that to become the Black woman's problem, we saw a rift and we saw a tear in the Black family dynamic. But also we have to realize that a lot of us are 80s babies. And a lot of us are products of the crack epidemic in the Black family household. Whether your parents was on crack, their relatives was on some type of heroin or so on and so forth, we saw a lot. And a lot of little girls were born with crack cocaine in their systems. A lot of little Black girls saw their mothers shoot up. A lot of little Black girls saw their mothers prostitute. A lot of little Black girls were turned to tricks because of their mothers and their fathers' habits. A lot of little girls were raised in households without a father, without a protector. A lot of little girls were raised in households where her father was her first molester, or her mother was her first bully, or her sister was her first enemy, or her brother or her uncles or her cousins are the ones who took her virginity first. So we have a lot of brokenness that's on the inside of a lot of Black women. So when they think they are living out a lifestyle of YOLO, you only live once. When we think we're living out freely and we're moving around like men, we are acting out on trauma. We are acting out on hurt. We are acting out on pain. This is not one swoop brush, but I'm speaking to those who know and those who get it. Before I go into some of the reasons why some women say they don't practice this, I cannot have this conversation without actually looking at this in a whole dynamic. So some women have actually fallen in love. Some women were soft first. And this is one reason why some women don't want to get married anymore. Because they were soft and they were submissive and they were giving and they were loving. And they got their heart broken. They don't want to do that again. But because of the breakdown in the Black family household, a lot of these men have not been properly vetted by our fathers and by our brothers, because we don't bring them home. Or if we bring them home, man, no man. So men, they not going to trick on each other. And sometimes they link up and cheat together because some brothers don't care. Then sometimes fathers and brothers don't put women onto game and onto red flags because it expose what that father or their brother is doing in their marriages and in their relationships. So a lot of women go out into the street unprepared to know what love actually looks like, what a real man actually looks like. So now we have women telling men what real men are, and it's because she's seen so many men that she finally figured out aren't real men. Some women do say it because they try to tell men what to do, but a lot of women say this is what a real man is because they've never fully seen it before and have only seen glimpses, masks thereof, or have fumbled men that were real men, and they begin to do some analysis. Just like men should be able to tell women that's not what women do. It's because we are each other's counterparts. If we mirror each other, we should be able to give each other correction. But we're so caught up on so many things. That's not our problems in the Black community. Another reason why some women no longer want marriage or never wanted marriage is because they've been working since they've been little girls. They've had to get up and go and cook and clean and help babysit for their moms so their moms could work because their fathers aren't at home. Or if their fathers are at home, maybe the mom is sick, so they have to start cooking at a young age. Or maybe the father is the one that's doing the raising, so she does more of the domestic duties and she played wife as a child. Some women have already done their wifely duties and they are drained and they are tired. And they don't want to be anybody's wife because they did not get to experience the love of a husband because they were playing wife to their fathers and playing wife to their brothers when they were only little girls, and they should have been learning how to be domesticated. But this is something that all sexes should learn how to do for basic survival tactics, even if the women in the house tend to do it more. Some women don't want to get married because of the stuff they seen their mothers and their grandmothers go through. And this is one thing that I want to say on this topic, because some women in my age group and younger are very disrespectful to their mothers and to their grandmothers. When they say, "Oh, I would never put up with that. I would never go through that. That's why I'm not gonna get married. If my husband do that to me, I'm leaving." Well, good for you. Good for you, sis. But do we see the disrespectful undertone under that? My mother always told me, "Tiara, never say what you won't do, because that'll be the thing that you find yourself doing." And I promise you, she was completely right. There are about 10 things I've done in my life that I grossly and gravely regret doing. But I am thankful to say that I never was like, "I will never," because the Most High will humble you either way it go. And it's not saying that you should not have that standard for yourself. It's saying that you should never get so high and mighty that you put your behind on your shoulders to say what you will and won't do. And just because you won't do this don't mean that you haven't done something that that person won't do. Everybody has a different moral compass. So some mothers and some grandmothers have gone through a lot: the cheating, the abuse, the alcoholism, the drug use, because although we are products of the 80s, they were living in the 80s. We have to remember that they were dealing with trauma as well. And if we are just finding out what trauma bonds are, do you not think our mothers and our grandmothers were not traumatically bonded to men who were paying the bills? Because you have to remember, this was a totally different breed of men. So of course it will be easier for you to walk away, because a lot of these Negroes today not paying the bills. A lot of these men today not even coming home. A lot of these men today are more openly sleeping with other men. A lot of these men today are not taking care of their children, and that's okay with women. They're still going to have what they want. Now, of course, deadbeat dads aren't anything new. Men leave their children every single day. But let's be real. A lot of men who had second families were taking care of those second families and also in love with that woman. Right or wrong, they were holding both families down. A lot of times they were not taken out of one household to sustain another. They were doing right by both. Nowadays, you more see, even though it happened back then, men who will plant multiple seeds. Women know that they got babies everywhere, and then they'll go and lay down and have a baby for this man, thinking that he's going to be better. Marrying him, thinking that they got a prize, but not looking at how he treated his kids before him. This is a breakdown, and those type of actions is one reason why some women in this day and age do not want to be married. And I'm going to tell you guys this. I have had conversations with women older than me, 20 to 40 years older than me, multiple women who were married for a long time and still married for a long time, widowed, married for a long time, divorced. And they told me, "I wish I was able to walk away at a younger age." So it's both sides of the token. Some women have more financial stability, and it's not because they couldn't find jobs. Y'all sound crazy when y'all say that. Black women back then did not have to work. The cost of living was not as much, but it was a different breed of men who said, "I am going to work. You stay home and you take care of these kids. Or if you do work, it's an option. Or if you need to work, your money is still going to be minimal and you still going to be soft as a woman." That's why these women had no problem cooking and cleaning and doing what women do, by being submissive and listening and respecting. This is one reason why it was longer for them to leave these toxic relationships, because they had more to lose. It's not always because they couldn't stand on their own. You still have women today who are stay-at-home moms with no lick of work experience, and then their husbands leave them and that's all they have. So we have to stop saying that completely and look at the dynamic. The men are not the same, but the women are not the same either. And that's something that we have to completely look into. Now, some women end up becoming a reflection of the men that hurt them. So they don't want a man. They want to be the man. I'm going to dog you out. And that don't mean that she all the time acts masculine, but that's still a masculine behavior. I can do to you what you can do to me, tit for tat. Many of us have been there. Many of us live there. Many of us love that place. Then you have women who begin to mirror the men that raised them. You know, the tomboys, some daddy girls, some women who just know how men think and how men move, so they don't want to play that game. Then you have women who are anti-ownership. They don't feel like they are anybody's possession. They are not meant to be owned. They cannot be bought. They cannot be tamed. They move how they move. They do what they want to do. They operate how they want to operate. Then you used to have some women who want long engagements or only engagements, but never any marriage, just so they can say, well, I got the ring. He wanted me to be his wife, but I'm good right here. Then you have some women who no one man can satisfy all of her needs. I'm talking physical, financial, intelligence, emotional, sexual, and I think I said spiritual, but I'm not sure. And I'm gonna do a video on this soon, today, on all of these different needs, because contrary to popular belief, a lot of women aren't one-dimensional and aren't multifaceted. And we'll get into that as well. Then, last but not least, you have some women that feels like she's unworthy of marriage because of societal norms. Maybe she has a lot of kids. Maybe she feels like she's overweight, or maybe she feels like she's too small, or maybe she feels like she's not attractive enough, or maybe she feels like men will only want her for sex because that's all they've ever wanted her for. Maybe she feels as if because of her past she's not worthy, maybe because of societal norms, like whatever it is. Maybe she's so off to herself, she doesn't want to be touched, she doesn't trust. Whatever it is, there are many reasons why Black women no longer want to get married. Oh, the one I was going to forget. This may be the most important one. Not sure though. It's all of them are important. I'm gonna say two-part. A lot of Black women don't want to get married because they've played side chicks to married men, and I'm gonna explain this dynamic. And one day I'll go. I don't know if I'll make a video, so maybe I'll just say it here, or I'll make a short video because all of y'all not gonna watch this video because it's longer. Some women end up becoming side chicks because men can be very predatory. Men can see women that are desperate, women who lack boundaries, women who have daddy issues. So they'll press them or say something to them. And some women end up feeling obligated, or she has an attraction, but she struggles with that guilt because it's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then she doesn't realize that she's being preyed upon. Some men wear women down. Some men use their power, their position to get to women. Some men will use a woman's vulnerability and her issues to prey upon her psyche and to get into her spirit. Then you do have some women who prey on married men, who hunt them down, who want them. You have some women who brag about this. Then you have some women who feel utterly disgusted that they have ever done anything like that, and they will never brag about it because they know that that's one of the lowest things that you can ever do in life, and it's a reflection of how you feel, and it has nothing to do with that woman. So this is something that you don't even really talk about unless it's from a confessional standpoint, because it's debasing and it's dishonorable. Then you have some women who absolutely don't care, and that's the position that they want for life. Then you have women who don't want to get married because they see a lot of their friends who are married only get married after years and years and years of being beat, cheated on openly, disrespected, manipulated, left, broken up, and then they get a pity ring or obligation ring or they have babies on them. And even throughout their marriage, it all continues, and that scares them. With that being said, there are many, 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 many reasons that Black women don't want to get married. And it's a holistic conversation that needs to take place to see if we can do some restoring. But at the end of the day, let people do what they want to do and let them be who they want to be, as long as they're not hurting nobody. but I do think that there's a greater conversation to be had. So this is Jacolia from Jacolia Gems. Thank you once again for coming back to view my channel. Go ahead, do me a favor, like this, help me get to 200 subscribers, as well as turn on your post notifications. Signing off. Talk to you guys soon.